Hey, this is Jeff from MACkite.
This is Skip from MACkite.
And we're here to dive in a little bit of a session chat. We've been kind of starting these recently, kind of taking advantage of our summer winds and warm weather and having a little discussion about what were the conditions like, a little less about the rider, our weight, and our sizes, and what we rode and what our experience was like. So we kind of haven't had a lot of wind lately, but yesterday we finally had a full day of northwest wind, which doesn't normally happen around here. Typically, for those of you that are in the Midwest or in Michigan, sometimes we get our best wind on a thermal, we call it, from the northwest, and it's usually on a sunny day, and it comes after 1 o'clock, and it'll blow till about 6 o'clock. But this forecast was a northwest for the full day, so I got up real early, like 5:10.
Before dawn.
Yeah, before dawn, and wanted to catch an early session. So the conditions that I was in at that point, it was blowing about 27 to 32 knots. I weigh 175 pounds, and I was pretty excited because I was going to be on some new gear. I've ridden, the board was the Starboard Blue Carbon 85 liter. I've been riding that more in lighter winds, but I wanted to test it in powered up conditions because it's a bigger board than what I traditionally ride in powered up conditions. So I wanted to see how does it feel, even though that board rides smaller than it feels. And it also, the way that it maneuvers and the balance point and just where they distributed the volume, it just doesn't feel like a traditional 80 liter. So I was excited to try that in those kind of powered up conditions. And then also pair that with the Code S series foil that I've only ridden one other time, and that's the 720, which is a small, gunny, fast foil. I've only been able to ride that one other time in big waves because I've been on the larger sizes. They're 850, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later because I did do more than one session yesterday. I rode first thing in the morning, powered up. And then the third piece I was on was the Cabrinha AER, which is a wing that comes into the market at a really good price point. No thrills, but they definitely have their years of R&D into it. I've done another video on that specifically. But it's a good price point, and it's really feels very light, and it's got soft handles, and the idea is that it's going to feel like nothing when you're on waves. Flags out beautifully with no issues. So I've been on the 5 meter, but I have not been on the smaller AERs powered up. So it was exciting to try that combination. So actually, two of the things that I was trying, the board and the wing, were different. The foil I'd been on before. My first thoughts on what I picked yesterday, I think I picked the right sizes. When it was blowing 25 to 30, when it got up into the 30s, I could have probably been on a smaller wing, a smaller AER, but the 3 did a nice job. I had no problem getting up, pumping up on the foil. I did stay more in my local spot. We do have a nice little jetty that protects us when we get out. So I did go out. I didn't spend hardly any time inside the jetty. I went around the outside to ride the waves. I would say there was probably consistently in the morning, the waves were probably like waist high, right about this area.
Makes sense. So
they weren't really big. There's a few maybe that were a little higher than that, despite the wind. It was, maybe a few chest high. So I felt the air. As soon as I turned the corner out of our jetty and you go along the wall, the waves are really nice. And I experienced why I love the AER. It feels like air behind you, spelled AER. I flagged it out, rode some waves, and it was like I didn't even have to think about the wing, that's what you're looking for, in a wave wing. So double thumbs up for that. I did spend quite a few times though riding down, then having to tack back up and harness in. So I don't feel that this wing is really built to be harnessed in. You can do it. I put my harness lines on the soft handles.
Soft handles, right?
Yep. And you can do it, but I think the wing is obviously designed to do downwinders and ride swell and not to be cutting hard upwind. It's not really what it's designed for. I did it with no problem, but it definitely, when you have a lot of pressure on those handles, it was pulling in on itself, not leaving much room for your hand to go in when you're doing your unhooking. And those are just small little things, but again, that wing isn't really designed for maybe driving upwind locally nonstop. You can do it, but it really shines in the waves because it's so light. It's very playful, easy to maneuver. Well, and it's a 3 meter. So anything when you get on when you get on a 3 meter, you know, obviously it's going to feel light and playful. But I was real happy with the air. You know, when you do ride a 3 meter, you've been on a 3 meter before, right?
And a 2.5.
Okay, so you might be able to relate with this. There is a little bit of technique you have to use getting up because it's such a small canopy. Yeah, very small. So any kind of gust or lack of wind, you're going to have immediate feedback that you don't have enough. You know, so you kind of have to wait a little bit and get it positioned where that gust hits, and then use that, because obviously less canopy, you don't have quite as much of a room to get what wind there is. So I did hit the deck a couple times, and you know, I had to just be a little more patient. You know, it feels a little finicky at first. Like,
so when you're feathering it, you're just trying to figure out where that sweet spot is?
Yeah, where the wind is. So that's something I noticed getting back on a small wing. I had not been on a 3 meter since I was in South Africa in March. So I was a little out of my element yesterday. I mean, I get to ride all kinds of gear, right? And I'm used to changing up gear in a lot of sessions, which is not always easy to do. But, you know, so I had a 3 meter in nuking conditions. It was nuking for us, and it was spitting rain. So, you know, those are always things that kind of come into play when you're trying to do a fair assessment of gear, and, you know, and be able to see what you're doing. But yeah, and then the board, I was pleasantly surprised. I would not normally choose an 80 liter board in those powered up conditions. I'd usually be on like a 70 or down to a 60 liter, a little shorter shape board. Something like the Ginsu Pro Carbon by KT, just to name one example. You know, there's 62 liters, probably what I would have been on that day. But I was surprised that the Takeoff Blue Carbon, it felt well balanced. I felt like, despite all the wind, I didn't feel it really, you know, being pushed around. You know. And
you get both flat water and waves.
Yes.
Today. You took off in the pool that we typically take off in, able to go ahead and ride that down, and didn't feel the swing weight at all?
No, wasn't too bad at all. I was kind of surprised by that a little bit. I thought I would have a little more feedback in the board. So in those kind of conditions, would it be my first choice? I don't know. Like, again, I had so many variables to my session yesterday with a wing I had not been on that size and that small, and only the second time on that small of a foil. I mean, I've been on smaller foils, but the Code S foil. So yeah, I think I was, you know, I'd go in the conditions again with it. You know, it'd be nice to try some bigger waves and make some harder carves and see how it affects in that. But it's kind of stretching the limit of that board, maybe, but maybe not. It can be a one board quiver. You know, for sure around here, because we don't get conditions like that all the time. And then the foil, I've been liking my Code foils. I've been forcing myself to, you know, ride different foils but stay on them for a few sessions so I can really get ingrained with them instead of bop. You know, sometimes when you bop around a lot of different foils as a tester, you know, I don't know, you just don't get quite the DNA and the feel of it unless you invest more time on it. And so I've been riding the Codes a lot this spring, along with the North, which I know you ride, which you're going to talk about here in a little bit. And so we've done reviews on those foils as well. I call them trade-offs. But the Code, things that stand out to me, especially the 720 compared to their other sizes, like the 850, very fast, accelerates. It's a foil yesterday. I think I chose the wrong foil for the size wave. I probably could have been more on, I did ride the 850 later in the day.
Oh, so you got to compare both of them?
Yes, on the same day. Later in the day, the conditions were not quite as windy. There's a little bit of swell left, but the 850 didn't want to outrun the waves as much. It wanted to stay in the wave. So I've been kind of chasing the small foils this spring. I've been riding some, you know, on that 600, 500 range, and I'm finding that there's some fun you can be had with those, but really the waves sometimes can dictate. Not only the waves, but the rider and the skill set, because when you start going to a faster, smaller foil, you do have to stay on it, especially the 720 Code S. Of all the smaller foils I've ridden, that thing, you just, you get to, if you push it, it's going to do what you're asking it to do. So maybe a little less forgiving for us midlifers. Is that a positive thing we like to call
thank you.
ourselves?
I appreciate
yeah, midlife, the better half of life. But yeah, so that was my experience. I enjoyed. I thought I picked the right. Maybe the foil I probably would have been better off on the 850 Code S versus the 720. The previous time I rode the 720 was on a shoulder high, head high day, and it was money. I really liked it. You do want to keep that foil moving though. It's not one just go straight because you're just going to spit right down to the bottom of the wave, because it has so much speed. So you have to kind of stay higher and manage it and work. At least I do when I'm riding it. But yeah, all in all, the AER, it does what they say and what they built it for. They do say it's a good wing, obviously for kids or lighter weight riders. I would agree with that. But on big wave days, it really shined. On a wave day, charging day, going upwind, I would say it's average. But again, that's not what it's made for. Yeah, he kind of had to find its spot. It talked back a little bit, but it's going to do that. It was really gusty yesterday too.
For a north, that kind of surprised me.
Yeah.
Typically, our norths are a strong cold front that comes through, and those ones you can predict in the summer. Once a week, usually in the summer, cross your fingers that you get a good north, and yesterday delivered.
Yeah.
I was a little sad, had to miss the morning session due to work commitments, but fortunately I'm here working with Jeff that was nice enough to let me ride in the afternoon as well.
Right.
So it was a great day, the entire day, and it started blowing last night.
Yeah.
The Wednesday night.
Yep.
So we typically don't get, it goes northeast and then heads northwest and then it'll pick up through the day. It was the opposite yesterday. When the tech string starts blowing up at 0500, for Jeff and his friends to get out before dawn, it's going to be a good day going through. Yeah. But it was the best wind, I think, was in the morning.
It was, and then it picked up a little bit in the afternoon again. Yeah, it was a good day to try some of our higher wind, smaller foils, smaller wings. Later in the day, I did get back out and I rode the 850 Code S, and then I rode a wing that you're familiar with, the Reedon. Yep. Because you haven't been on the Cabrinha AER yet, I don't think.
No, not yet.
No. I don't think you've been on the Blue Tech. Have you been on the Blue Tech board? No. By Starboard. But I got on the Reedon Supernatural. One of our favorite wings, for sure. It's a great do-it-all. And I went bigger because the wind was starting to come down. And so it was probably blowing when I got there. Well, you were just getting off the water.
Probably high teens, maybe 20, and you could tell it was switching a little bit offshore, typical Muskegon, where it'll switch a little bit before it shuts down, but you're able to ride for a while. Yeah,
and I chose to rig big partially because it was either going to be a 4.5 float or it was going to be the Supernatural 5.5. I didn't have a 5 with me, which I probably would have gone either. Probably could have made the 4.5 work, but I wanted to go around the outside and poach some of the waves that were left. I didn't want to get caught out there. So I did choose the bigger wing, which I'd normally choose in lighter wind, like 15 to 16 or 14 to 17, depending on what board and foil combination. Pleasantly surprised that Supernatural handled a lot of wind. You ride. You have a 6. Well, you have a couple sizes.
4.5 and a 6.
Oh, you have 3 now.
Yeah, both 2.
4.5. Oh, sorry, 4.5 and a
6.
Yeah.
Just great light kites. They just float with you. Wings. They float with you. Yeah, trying to do both.
Everyone calls them kites too, Yeah.
But how that handle, the ergonomics on that, I'm still getting to the point where I can flag out, but I'm able to cheat a little bit with that pistol grip and just grab it and being able to float down. Your skill set's more advanced than mine is, where you're able to go ahead and drop it down, but just how that wing just floats, wing that's next to you, is just phenomenal.
It does, and it even with the pistol grip, you can maneuver it real easy and do everything that you need to get it out of your way and cheat a little bit with it. But yeah, my takeaway from yesterday, in those conditions, I wouldn't typically ride a 5.5. I sized up to the 850 Code S because of the waves and the conditions and what I experienced in the morning. And I had no issues, I even some of those higher gusts, which would be a lot for me at 175 pounds, the 5.5 and 21, 22, I'd be like usually on a 4.5 at that point. Again, you can cheat lower size wings based on the foils that you're riding or the board that you're riding. It's really about getting up. You want to, if you fall, you don't want to be stuck. So I was able to have a great kind of a sunset session on the 5.5, and I actually played around the pool a little bit. We call it the kiddie pool if you're a winger because it's protected from the waves and where you learn. But if you're a kiter, it's the pro pool because where you can throw down on the flat water. So it's like opposites depends on the sport. But I went inside the kiddie pool after my session where I poached a few waves and worked on some stuff. So I think it's a good idea. You know, I wouldn't say I'm bored riding flat water, but it's not where I really, you know, gets me excited about winging anymore. It's really about the wave, but I want to put a plug in for flat water riding that's protected. You can work on things. And I needed to get a little out of my comfort zone and work on some things because I've been riding a lot lately and not falling in much. And if you watch some of my videos, you know that if you're not falling, you're not trying. You're not trying new things. You're getting real comfortable. You're not pushing the envelope. It's okay sometimes. I was talking to Mike on the beach about it, and he goes, well, sometimes it's nice not to fall, though, and just stay up for a while. You know, I get that. But I was able to play around on that 5.5 with the 850 code S and try some behind the back tacks upwind around my back and up over. And I was able to, you know, hone those in a little bit more. I've been able to do those in the past, but I really wanted to get more efficient at them. And so what I was impressed with, two parts. One, the foil. Those codes have incredible amount of glide. They get up to speed quickly and they hold the glide and the stall speed's incredible. Which you need when you're trying to do jives and, you know, some of those kind of maneuvers. You want that foil to stay on the glide. And the other takeaway for me was the supernatural is that the aerodynamics of it. I mean, when you're either tacking it with it over your head or you're putting it behind you, you don't feel much drag, and it feels like it just stays out, you know.
Just level.
Level, yep. Which you want when you're obviously trying to do what was I doing yesterday? I was doing a toe side tack around the back and then coming back around and heading back out. So all in all, I think, you know, the gear I chose and the conditions matched pretty well, other than maybe I would have chosen the 850 in the morning.
Oh, you would have?
Yeah, versus the 720. I let the wind dictate it more in the morning, but the waves, I think I would have had a little more fun on the 850. I think if I spent more time on the 720, I could have made it work and had a little more fun on the waves that we had, but I felt myself just speeding out of the waves a lot. And even Mike, who I ride with, he was like, dude, that thing, the foil you're on, I could tell you, when you made a turn, you just accelerated. I mean, I was like, yeah, it was almost too much speed, though. I was having a hard time staying in the pocket and staying in the wave. I'd just be like shooting down the line or shooting out in front. And some of that's condition driven too. It's hard to see. It's kind of rainy, gusting to 30. But these are things that kind of go on in my mind when I'm out riding. There's just, you know, there's variables can affect what you're riding and how you feel. Dialed, we like to call it.
So when you came back the second session, this is after a break. You had a great morning session, fully powered up in the 3.5. You made the decision to go out. You wanted to test the second wing. Why didn't you pick the smaller front wing?
The key to that is I just felt like I wanted to have a little bit more fun in the pocket of a wave versus just the speed that you can experience. And I think the size of the waves that we had, I'm finding dictate to me a little bit if I don't want to pump as much to other waves, or I want it to have more of a relaxed kind of get in the pocket of the wave and just sit there and just kind of let the foil do its thing and not have to be on it so much. That 850 did that perfectly my second session. And what little waves were left, some of them had a couple that are high as this table or lower, and I was just able to kind of just, you know, surf around on them a little bit and not feel like I had to stay on the foil as much and be aware of the speed I was gaining because it was just staying right there in the pocket more. So again, that has to do with sizing the foil based on the wave and the type of riding you want to do. I need more time in the 720 to be up front with you.
And that's thanks for the advice too, because I typically look at wind speed only, and the variable of the size of the wave makes sense to me now. Because I was after your challenge of hey, go small in the front foil, just how that wave also impacts that decision that you made.
And it's a good segue because you wrote some new stuff yesterday too.
I did. Got a challenge from Mr. Jeff here. Ride new gear and challenge yourself not to ride in a straight line. The great words of the great and powerful Tucker. If you're not crashing or learning new stuff, you're getting a little bit stagnant, so it's always fun to get challenged. And I went to a North Front 680. First time to ride the SF 680 is what I had on, 85 meter mast, centimeter mast, and also changed up the rear stabilizer. But I'm typically on an 830. I dropped down from a 1230 last year to the 830 SF series, and then watching your speed difference between the 900 that you were riding and the 700 is dramatic. So I kind of wanted to challenge myself. I've tried that same 630 as well, and wow, it flew. If you put on the gas, it'll go in a bag of chips. Just a great
bag of chips.
It's a great turning foil as well. Didn't feel too much uncomfortable going from the 830 down to the 600 series size, which is the smallest foil I've ever ridden. My conditions were a little bit different from yours in the afternoon. It was blowing about probably a steady 20 to 25. Dropped down for a little bit and then picked back up later in the afternoon and evening. So I was on a 3.5 meter and a 4.8 North North Pro that I was on.
Was the Mode Pro?
The Mode Pro, thank you.
Mode Pro, yeah.
That I was on, and a KT Super K 70 liter board. I weigh 160 pounds.
And it was last year's KT, right?
Thank you. Last year's KT with the step bottom.
Yeah.
Love that step bottom because it seems to be gets me up to speed quicker. At 70 liters for me, I can still float that at 160 pounds. So it's not a full sinker. I did try a full sinker later that day, and I did see the difference between those two boards. But at 160 pounds at 70 liters, that board size seems to be pretty phenomenal for me.
Yeah, and you've been stepping your game up. I mean, you've improved a lot the last year. I mean, dropping down those smaller foils. And so, what did you feel about that foil yesterday besides speed? Speed was the name of the game. That's the name.
You're able to go ahead and see a wave and catch up to it. On the 12 series that I had, and sometimes even the 830s, I think that's more skill set than equipment. Is you have to really ramp up to get to that wave to be able to drive and go downwind with it. But with that 600 series foil, you're going so much faster. Did the same thing Jeff did already, that you can catch it pretty quick. I'm not to the point where I'm joining waves as I'm riding downwind. It's more just a downwind push that I'm doing. But it really surprised me with the speed combined with the stability. I didn't feel rocking side to side. It wasn't hard to get up on. Didn't skip up as I was trying to get up, and that's I think half of learning and then half of the equipment.
the North SF series, I've said it before, is a really easy button of high performance. I mean, it's like autopilot. It's like cruise control, a good cruise control. It'll set and it will just, I mean, wow. I've been on that same foil, and I was amazed at how much lift it had for its size and how you can manage it, the speed. You know, you have to push it to get the speed a little bit more, maybe compared to the Code S, where it kind of just, you set it there and the code just goes, whoo, you know, where the North, and some of it's perception. The North, it'll get up to speed. You just have to kind of drive it to get that. But yeah. Were you able to do some, your drives and tags?
Able to hit my turns pretty good, which was fortunate because after Jeff's early session, the wind switched a bit and we had an upwelling. So it went from low 70s water temperature. Once you got out past the channels in the big lake, it got a little bit chilly. So the text thread that said it's bathwater warm in the morning was a little bit negative when I was out there later in the afternoon. So the waves are still great, probably about waist high at the type of it when we first started having a lot of fun with it. Dropped down a little bit because it was a straight north. Northwest is when we get that kick and we get some great waves. But
and you go to the outside for a little bit?
Went out to the outside.
I think I saw that.
Yeah, the outside.
Old men love Strava, and we're Strava pals, so I can see what he did. If he said, "Yeah, I went 30 miles yesterday," no, you did. It says you can't lie. You can't lie on Strava. Whatever motivates us, right? But I did see you go on the outside a little bit. That's good.
Wing size.
Sorry, man.
Kite size. I'll get used to it. 3.5 was okay when it was really windy. What I like about those North series is they take a lot of wind. I could have been out on the 4.8 probably the entire day and not have been overpowered or feel that I was getting fatigued from the amount of power that the wing generates. It's just a great handling wing when it does have a lot of power. It did drop down a little bit later, and I should have switched back to the 830s, just running out a little bit out of time. But it would have been a great comparison, like you did, is going from that 6 back to the 830 to see how it felt going back and forth.
And so when you chose the 630, you weren't deciding. You just chose the same wing, the 3.5 that you would have chose if you were on your 800.
Yep.
Okay, so you went for it. Yeah, and you found success with that.
It was a blast. It was a blast. A little bit hesitant. Because when I saw you coming out of the water with that, the Ginsu knife on the front,
I remember that.
How are you going to get up? It's the size of
very low profile. It's not very thick from front to back. Yeah, it's it comes though. You've spent some time in the water. You got quite a few hours in the water now, and so that you were ready for that next progression. And wind is your friend, obviously, in those things. Because with the smaller foils, you do need to keep the board flat a little longer to get up. You just don't pop up quite as fast, but that North gets up pretty easy. I would say.
I was impressed too is how the recommendation of making sure you size your stabilizer to the front foil.
We haven't talked about that.
Big thing that I learned is you can't just downsize the front foil. You have to have that rear stabilizer in consideration. And I'm learning this both kite foiling and wing foiling as well. Mostly on the kite foiling side, when I'm trying to downsize my front wing, you have to consider that rear stabilizer, because you can be kicking up or down. That's when Hooker gave me a hard time because I was nosing up.
Nose up.
I reduced my front wing but did not reduce my rear stabilizer, and I had that push. As soon as I changed that with the conditions that I had on the front foil, it made a big difference with speed, number one. Saw a dramatic increase in speed. So just make sure that you're considering your stabilizer when you are going down or up on your front wing size.
Do you remember what, were you on the 158 stabilizer?
Yes. Yep.
The code, I'm putting my own self on the spot. I have like 3 different ones in my car, and my memory is not as good as I
You rode 2 of them yesterday.
I rode 2 of them yesterday, and I can't remember. And I took one off of my Parawing setup, so I'm trying to remember which one it was. I think it was the one AER 150. We may have to put a little subtitle at the bottom after this. This is what he actually rode. Did he ride the same one on the 720 and the 8?
It won't be on Strava.
The 850, yeah. I think I did ride the same stab on those. I don't remember. We'll have to put it in the bottom. You'll see it there anyways. But anything else you want to share about your session yesterday? Or what you rode?
70-liter board. And a buck
KT.
60, yeah, KT Super K. This
2024.
Is 2024.
They made a big change in 2025.
No step bottom, changed the shape, and also where they put the weight a little bit differently. And I was able to ride the 70 before. I didn't see a lot of difference between this year's and last year's KT model. I was able to ride those back and forth between those individual boards. What I do love about that KT is I'm an intermediate wingfoiler, how that thing gets up to speed so quick. It just really impresses me with the mid-length boards that you're able to point it a little bit downwind and then get that thing up to speed. And the KT, when you're coming down, I'm to the point where I'm still hitting the wave sometimes as I'm trying to turn around. You're able to hit the bottom and then skip back out. So it's a really great board for someone at my ability to have a little bit of an excuse. And if I do hit a mistake, it's going to go ahead and save me out of that turn, which I do like a lot.
And that board too is very lightweight and balanced very well. And remind me, you were on the 2024 yesterday.
2024.
Yeah, I sometimes can't keep up with what gear you're jumping on next, but the 2025 they did change that, and that's in a different video that we've shot. We've shot the difference between those two. But yeah, so you felt like it was a good combo then. The 3.5 Mode Pro, which has been a favorite around our shop, especially for its how well it is in the high wind and taking all that and the speed you can get with that wing. Not as great on the waves. Now you predominantly pistol grip, I know,
pistol
now.
Grip, yeah, pistol grip in the front
which
grip.
is what you want to do with that wing,
okay.
Actually. You can flag out the Mode Pro in the smaller sizes, but in the bigger sizes they kind of want to flap down in front of you, and they're a little bit heavier, but that heavy, strong build is what makes them so great for being speedy, driving upwind. They have such a great wind range. So I like to call those trade-offs, you know, with it. So, but you were on a 3.5, right?
3.5, and then went back to the 4.8. So I was switching back and forth because the wind kept on going up and down.
Yep.
So depending on what the wind was doing, same thing that you did. I was riding either in the pool or outside in the waves. I wanted to get out in the waves as much as possible yesterday just to try that Solo 680 and try it. And we had great wind. Best day of the week so far. Yeah,
I'd say best day in a couple weeks for high winds that we've had.
And warm water.
Really warm water, which is very nice, very nice. So, but yeah, did you cover everything you wanted to cover with your session?
Great to ride with you, especially after your second session and the 5 hours that you put in the water.
I did put a lot in yesterday. My wife worked late. I had no need to get home too early. She supports my craziness anyways, but yeah, I did quite a few sessions out miles on the water yesterday. But it's fun to try all the different gear. It's great to have, you know, for us, you know, being in the position we are to have access to all this gear. And we just kind of wanted to share, you know, our session, you know, impressions, how we felt with the gear, why we chose what we did, what we learned, what we would try differently next time. So if you've listened all the way in, good for you. But really, we're happy to help, happy to share our experience, because I'm sure it's maybe similar to some of the experience you have, or you're thinking about buying, sizing down on your foil, sizing down on your board, or maybe a different wing. Hopefully these kind of help give you some context to your next purchase or just your next time on the water. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to us, obviously give us a call, send us an email, send us a chat. You can leave comments at the bottom, your experience with some of the gear that we've ridden on, things that made sense, things that are like, what? That's not what I felt, that's not what I experienced. Be happy to respond or get your perspective as well. It's been Jeff here at MACkite.
Skip here with MACkite.
All right, enjoy the stoke.